Hi and welcome back to my channel, and in this video I'm going to be talking about what have been some of my favourite community interest projects that I have run over the years that have been grant funded. So I'm going to give you my top 5 favourite projects. Before I jump into that, please hit the subscribe button, subscribe to this channel for everything to do with community interest companies, grant funding or anything to do with being a community artist. That aside, let's jump into it. So I'm going to run down my top 5 favourite. I've run so many amazing projects over the last 10 years. I've absolutely loved my work. And I think the things that I love about it the most is that I'm able to just dream up exciting new projects. I'm a very creative person. I also like to change up what I do a lot. So, I'll literally come up with a completely new idea of what to do, get some grant funding for it, run a project, and then, I've got that on my portfolio. So over the last 10 years, I've done so many that I've now got loads of projects in my portfolio. So here are my top 5. So my first project that I'm going to talk about, is one of my first projects that I actually did, is I loved doing my rap therapy project. So when I left being a probation officer and I started 4 Elements CIC, I got my first music and media studio set up. I set up this whole photography studio and a little music booth. Got all the software, got all the equipment, which I all got funded through grant funding. And I absolutely loved those early days when I had groups of young people coming in, people that were rappers, singers, people that were just into do music videos and the media side of things. Absolutely loved it. And through those first few years, I actually grew a music scene in this area from literally nothing by creating a YouTube channel, by videoing, to making the music videos of the young artists. We created this fantastic channel. We did performances locally, and we were just part of a community, and I absolutely loved it. And those were such special times. And all of those rappers now, those young rappers, have all grown up, but all of us look back on that time of when we did those projects fondly, and it was just such an incredible experience. It really changed a lot of people's lives. People used it who were long-term unemployed. They used it as work experience that enabled them to get jobs. It was their first step into employment. For a lot of them, it diverted them away from crime. And for some of them, it even got them, gigs on stages at festivals. They travelled into other countries to festivals. And some of them launched businesses off the back of some of that work. So it was so beneficial to those young people that did that work. And I really enjoyed it myself. So I think it's some of the most impactful and personally beneficial projects that I've ever done. My second project, which I loved, was a few years ago. I did a Cornwall photography project where I basically got groups of people together. I advertised just on Facebook and Eventbrite a free photography walk. And on a Saturday, we would get these, people together, and I would go out and I would go to certain different areas in my local area that were beautiful, and we'd start there and we'd literally just go around and take loads of photos. And it was so nice in terms of just like mindfulness and well-being, like to just go out with these lovely people. It was always nice people. Everybody always said how wonderful it was and how much they enjoyed it, what it meant to them. People who had never really picked up a camera or were totally new to it, and then you had people who were like experts. You had a real mixture of backgrounds. And afterwards, we'd all share the photos on the social media platform. We'd share the photos, and it was such a nice experience to see everybody's photos. Everyone would comment on it. Everyone would encourage each other. And I just love how community projects really bring like complete strangers together in a kind way, that everyone is kind and supportive and encouraging. And that's, I think, one of the best things about community projects. And I loved that one. And I think it was also because it got me out. A lot of my projects, I've done a lot of research or done stuff inside, workshops and all that. And what was nice about that is we actually just got out into nature and were taking photos. So it was really holistic. I loved it. So my third favourite project has got to be when I went to Gambia. And I wanted to do an international project. I'd already made a lot of connections and done some voluntary work in Gambia with a local charity that did grassroots work with education. And while I'd been there, I'd noticed a group of women who were migrants. They'd basically been travelled through 3 different countries with their children, single mums, and they'd found their way into Gambia, which is a bit of a safe haven country, and they'd set up a washing business. So they would, everyone would bring their washing, and it was this fantastic little washing business, and they were completely independent, and they had all their kids running around, and they almost lived in a bit of a commune. And I got the idea that I would document their stories and tell their stories, because it was just really empowering how they had, come so far and set this new life up and were independent. And I was really interested to hear about that. So I did a project where I collaborated with a writer, because I'm not the best at writing, where I collaborated with a writer and I did the photography. So this was fantastic. So we went out, we got a translator as well who we employed, so it was nice to employ somebody on the ground as well. I did the photography, Mandy did the writing, and we put together this fantastic little zine book and exhibition when I got back. Also raised a bit of money, and it was just before COVID, so I was able to send that money out to them, which was great, because then that actually probably got them through very hard months where they wouldn't have been able to operate as a business because their country went into lockdown. So I loved that project. I mean, it had benefit to them. It was so interesting for us. Really developed my photography as well. Being able to do that and put it all in an exhibition was just really, really nice. So I loved that project. It was definitely one of my favourites. My 4th favourite project was to do with heritage in my area. So although I'm an artist, I'm also a massive history buff. I love heritage and my local history, which here in Cornwall is largely about it's a very post-industrial place. So we have a lot of mining heritage. My dad was a miner, my uncles were miners, and I'm just very interested and captivated by the landscape here, which is littered still with mines and old mine ruins. So I did. And also what's interesting is with my area, it's very financially, economically depressed. It's one of the poorest areas in the country. But once upon a time, these towns were the richest. So because in the days when the mines in the early sort of 1900s, were booming, this was a completely different place. And I was very interested in that. So I did a project on my local town. So I worked with the local archives. And I basically got all the photography together from the old sort of 1900 period, and I put on an exhibition in town. And I also, as part of that, gained I worked with a lot of the old mine ruins and the old museums. I worked with some of the old mines that have closed, and I went in and actually was able to get a lot of old artefacts together to put in the exhibition. So I absolutely loved that. It gave me such a great sense of where I'm from, sense of identity doing that heritage work. I loved doing it. The way it engaged with the community was wonderful. I had so many people coming in, telling me how they worked down the mines or their family did, and sharing all these stories. I actually ended up meeting people that knew my dad, who's passed away now, who'd worked down the mine with him, and they told me all these stories about how they used to work together. And I learned things about my family through doing that project. So I think doing that heritage project was really special to me personally. It's great portfolio-wise as well. It was enjoyable, and again, it engaged a lot of the community and was really special. And my 5th favourite project is actually the one that I'm doing currently, which is Untold Stories, which again is another heritage one. It's funded by the Lottery Heritage. And it has been about diversity in Cornwall. So feeding on for everything that I did with sort of my local area, when I was doing that work, I came across lots of really inspiring stories about women in Cornwall, and also about the Black community in Cornwall, which is something that's completely untold. I didn't even know a lot of this stuff existed. I didn't know about these people from our history. So I decided I would do a project on Untold Stories Cornwall. So I've been putting that together again, working with the archives, doing the research. I've written 2 books about it and about to do some presentations. I've already done some, and they were so well received. And the exciting thing is the 2 books that I've written have been picked up by a local publisher, and now I'm going to be a published author, which is incredible considering, I'm someone who was in the, had dyslexia in school, was kept down in the, the bottom set. And, I've worked really hard on, I've been to obviously uni and stuff like that, but for me to actually have something published and for people to appreciate it and to actually be, recognised as a historian. I've also done the artwork, because I'm an artist as well. I've done the artwork for the books, and that's been really well received as well. So it's been so exciting. And so I think that this is definitely one of my favourite projects. I've learnt loads. It's just built my portfolio. It's really put me up to another level, and it's also engaged my community and inspired so many people. And the impact is huge because now all the local schools are going to be picking up that research. There's a real legacy from the project that's going to go forward. I can't believe that I've actually uncovered a lot of this stuff, and I've actually contributed now to a change in the local curriculum. So I hope those have inspired you, because what you should take from this is that when you have a CIC, literally anything is possible. You can come up with the most amazing ideas, and you can actually, completely change your life and other people's lives. And you can have a massive impact on your community. And, we're paid, quite generously, but actually, if you think of the scheme, in the grand scheme of it, it's tiny pots of money, which are having a massive impact. So we are doing work which is massive value for money. So I don't think you should ever feel guilty about taking grant funding money or paying yourself, because the work we do has huge benefit. And there's so much money that's wasted in the system that really, for peanuts, we're achieving a massive amount. And literally the world is the limit. You can just come up with any idea you want. You could go, if you want to do something, you could go and do a course in it, get an expertise, and then come back and run workshops and do a grant project. So you could just drastically change your life and your career. Any questions, or if you want to run your idea past me, do jump over to my website and jump in the chat box, and I will do my best to give you some advice on your project, whether it's viable, whether I think it will get funding or not.